Yes, yes, yes. It's your boy again. I told y'all I was gonna be making these spot up appearances here and there. Don't matter what day it is. But first and foremost, everybody happy Fourth of July weekend. I know for some it ain't shit. We still ain't free. We ain't independent. We did the Juneteenth thing and all that. I don't know what type of response I'm gonna get. Most of you are probably out there barbecuing, drinking your 1738 Hennessy or whatever, Coronas, and spending time with family. Nothing wrong with that. But I just decided to come on, and I may very well be talking to myself. But I'm okay with that because you can always watch the replay. And plus, last week I did enough of all of that, uh, hanging out, partying, just enjoying family that uh, I'm in relaxation mode. But let me tell you, I'm going to get this going. So I'm going to read the introduction. I will be dropping in the counselor's corner to discuss the untold story about boys, giving some talking points and personal testimonies based on the article I read. Sexual assault against boys is a crisis. Yeah, you heard it. It's a crisis. Um, in the article, some researchers from Johns Hopkins, led by Robert Blum, discuss some findings regarding boys and sexual assault. I will not go too deep, just getting the conversation going because I believe this conversation has to continue and we have to keep it going. But please like and share the video and please subscribe to my YouTube channel, The Controversial Counselor. And one of the reasons why it has to keep going is we often talk about men being leaders of the home, men taking charge. You often see, I know even in my group, the counselor's corner, women talking about who hurt these men, who hurt you. Well, well, this is also piggybacking on, you know, the R. Kelly situation where we all know that he got 30 years for the different sexual assault charges, kidnapping, the little, what is it called? The little enterprise he ran. Um, but often, no one ever really talks about the pain that he went through. And one of the things is, they always say he's a monster. He deserves all of the time. Well, if he's a monster, then also that relative that was molesting him since he was 8 to 14, definitely a monster. So monsters are created by sometimes other monsters. And the thing is, reading, going back doing research on that, I didn't do any elaborate research. I just read a little bit because, like I said, I just want to kind of get this conversation going. And it stated that she did that to his brothers as well, but they didn't like the feeling. But Kels liked the feeling. He liked sleeping. I don't know what the nature of it was, but say for example, if they was actually sleeping together or he was penetrating, he liked that feeling. But also there was their uncle Henry, like a good friend of the family that they had a close connection to. He started molesting Kels, and I remember reading an article, and one of his brothers said that Henry, I think that's his name, or if it ain't, that's his name now, pulled out his Johnson, pulled it out, and had it in his hand, and they kind of like broke their necks to get out the house, which who could blame them? They're kids. So they got out the house, but eventually, I think R. Kelly ended up going back over there. But I think before when they ran out, the one thing Henry said, please don't tell your mother, please don't tell your mother. And he also might have gave her $5,000 to keep it a secret. But Kels kept going over there, and of course, he ended up was getting sexually assaulted by Mr. Henry. So it's a whole bunch of background, hidden pain stories untold about that, and they've been told, but it's not enough of that narrative being told regarding boys being sexually assaulted. So I just wanted to come on here today briefly. I don't want to steal your joy, but also look at the holiday time is usually there's alcohol, uh, there's cookouts and gatherings, there's conversations, people meeting each other, and things jumping off, and new relationships begin. There's typically violence during, unfortunately, during holiday weekends. You'll see an influx of violence. Uh, you know, people liquored up, shooting each other. Then there's, sescapades or whatever you want to call it. So I felt, hey, this is a good time to talk about it. And I don't know if people celebrating today, to me, I would prefer today, but then, tomorrow is the third, and then most people have the fourth off on Monday. So who knows when people might be celebrating all weekend long. I mean, if they know T Glove, talk about my sister, then that's how that's gonna go down. Shout out to T Glove and my cousin Deshara, always throwing good gatherings and getting family together, as well as my cousin Lucinda Maxwell also. So they do a great job of getting family together and bringing love amongst us. So that's most definitely appreciated. So, anyways, so I felt this was a good time to talk about it. Now, people may go back and watch the replay, they might not even click on it, but I feel like it's some valuable information in this because, again, we always talk about the abuse that girls go through. And let's be real as far as guys. Most guys, as far as like boys, that's like a notch under your belt to be able to get with an older female, to get with one. If you can accomplish that, you're doing big things. You're ahead of the game. So, but the reality of it is, if you're 12, 13, and that person's 23, 25, 30, and they're giving you some, that's sexual assault. That's sexual molestation. But typically, boys will not tell that. Probably how it's found out is they're bragging and telling someone, and it might be a friend who has a real good, close connection with his mom's, and he's open to her, and he might share that information. Well, little JJ, little JJ mess with the neighbor down the street. She like, what do you mean mess with her? He goes over there. She makes him sandwiches. He gets to watch TV. He's in her bedroom and all that stuff. And then stuff like that. That kind of sparks the conversation. But for the most part, boys don't talk about it. They don't say much. So, but if you think about it, it ends up impacting men, well, as they grow into manhood. Because of that, uh it's just a total imbalance of power and being taken advantage of. But oftentimes we don't, again, boys don't speak on it, but it's time to start having those conversations, because then you wonder why the man in your household that's leading, he has post post traumatic stress disorder. Um, he has bouts of depression, may even have suicide thoughts, always seem to be angry, or his sexual appetite may be more desirable than you like it to be, and he likes variety. We probably don't. You probably don't have those conversations because when people start dating, they don't ask those type of questions about the past. Because then also we have this notion of saying, well, that was the past. But we also know about this saying, what's the best predictor of the future is your past. So let me just give you some talking points, and I'm gonna move this along, and then I'm gonna have some talking points. I'm not here to keep y'all too long because it's just me, and y'all know I don't like to talk too much. So boys learn that they're supposed to be tough and strong and sexually dominant around 10 to 14 years old. And I can tell you, I remember growing up and I was kind of slow, behind, not slow intellectually wise, but more socially. I was quiet, maybe socially awkward. But one of the things is we had like some of my friends, they were more advanced than I, and I can remember times. I ain't telling no names because this shit could set a whirlwind, a fire. But if you're listening, you probably get the gist of what's going on. But hey, I'm 52 years old now. Ain't no need to hold back now. And we're talking about something like over 40 some years ago. But they would always say to me, "Man, you need to come over to our street because it's going down over there. We are actually grinding on some of our friends' mothers, and they letting us grind. Oh man, you know such and such mother. You see her big old ass and all that stuff." And I was like, "Ill, like I'm not going over there for that." And it created this false sense of like they were studs, like they were doing big things. Now, mind you, I don't know if them mothers or older women gave them any. That never was reported to me. But also, there was another connecting piece to that. When we were younger, my mother had a close friend, and she was waiting for her condo or house to be completed. So they stayed with us for a while. I don't know, maybe half of the school year. And they would come on our street periodically. And when they did, they were like superstars because, they were supposed to like, we should have been more like sisters and brothers. And at times, that's the way it was. But then also, there were attractions because if you want to think about it, if you weighed them out of a 10, they were there. They were there 9 out of 10, 9.5. And my friends, they thought that um like we had a two-family home, but the house was like a little ranch style house. It wasn't no upstairs anything. But they would see them on the bus get off there, and they just thought maybe they stayed in the front, we stayed in the back. I don't know why they thought that, because they were our house was like the community house. But I guess at that time, that's when we got into more of our teenage years, and we were like young. But anyways, they stayed with us. Now, when they found out that our house was just one house, I got a lot of slack behind that. A lot of slack. Mind you, I'm in the fifth grade. I'm 10 years old. So I would get stuff. Oh, them fine ass girls live with you and your brother Carlos, whatever, and y'all not hitting it. No, I'm 10. I don't know anything about that. And they would keep pushing that narrative, almost to the point I enjoyed them being there. And actually, yeah, they were great eye candy. Don't get me wrong. We had our little, mishaps and stuff like that. But it got to the point that I was like, oh man, I'll be able to breathe again. And I won't get this ridicule every day once they leave, but I knew once they left, I was going to miss them. So pretty much every day, I would get this, that slack, that smoke would be coming my way. Yeah, please like and share the video. I appreciate it. Um, and I just was like, okay, I would have to take it. And it wasn't just one, it was multiple of them. So what I'm basically saying is this is the culture, remember, 10 to 14, that boys were taught to be aggressive like that. I just wasn't aggressive like that. Don't get me wrong. We had bouts of times we would, if any of you familiar with the game Hine Go Get It and all of that little stuff we would play, and we would wrestle with girls, then you would get them down and you would overpower them and you would grind and do all this stuff, but really sometimes it would be might it be against their will. That's thought. We didn't know it. We were little kids. But I'm gonna go deeper with some of the other talking points as far as that. But I just wanted to tie a personal connection with it. Not that too many people watching it, but they can always go back and see it. So boys are more likely than girls to die in their second decade of life. And the reason why that was said is because the unspoken truth about boys is that they go through this sexual abuse cycle, and it may lead to drugs and alcohol, unhealthy living, and stuff like that, which ends up being on a regular basis. So they don't end up being as healthy because you're doing drugs, you're drinking constantly, you're trying to medicate that pain. So that plays a part of it too in people developing unhealthy living styles. All of this stuff is connected. People don't think so, or they don't go deep in it, but it is. All right, next point. They use more alcohol and tobacco habits that erode their health um, as they age. And this is true. So they start doing that at a young age to medicate, uh, like I said, their pain, and to heal them, to give them a false sense of purpose or security. Don't mind me. Just had to have a sip of cold iced tea. All right. Boys suffer higher levels of physical violence, neglect, and sexual abuse by adults than girls, which most people probably wouldn't think. They think that it's girls that it happens to more often, but it's boys. Part of the reason is maybe because secretly they may know that boys are not going to tell. Not all, but many of them are not going to tell. Girls, you taking a high risk, and typically is, and I think in both cases is people that um, but they may feel they got a better chance with boys to keeping that information in than with a girl. So it happens more to boys. So there's a lot of damaged boys that leads to damaged men who never got help. You see where I'm going with this? I'm going somewhere with it. And these are the people that lead our homes, communities, but they haven't been healed. And again, I'm gonna always say that. Don't give me the church thing. Don't give me that. Don't give me that. Don't give me that, because as you can see, that doesn't always work in these situations. So let's hear this out. The more boys was victimized, the more likely he was to do violence to others. Okay, so let's go back to that theme of Kells. Sometimes it happened to people, boys, and it may only be like a couple times. I've spoken on my history of having sexual assault done to me. And that's how I came out as an author with Cocktail Conversations. It's in my introduction. I used to break down in tears when I would talk about that, but I think I'm better now. I ain't trying to, I ain't, and there's nothing wrong with that, but I'm better today than I was during that time when I first started talking about it. So it didn't happen that often to me, but with Kells, it happened from the age of 8 to 14. I think with that relative, female relative, and I don't know, I can't remember the age span when Miss Henry started doing it. I don't know if that was all together, but it seemed like it was on a regular basis. So it's safe to say he became a sexual deviant, and he normalized that behavior because it was happening to him. I don't recall him getting any help or anything. And here you have it, created a big time monster. But I'm not here to go all into all of his situation, but we know he wasn't alone in this. We know that. We know that it was people he had on his team that went out in the crowd and got these girls, and they were given wristbands to come to the backstage, and they were given access to travel across the country with him. Then they end up living. He had a house with them. It was a lot. It was a lot. And one of the things also, I did a post earlier about how you could be on top one day and then you could be down down the next time. But his stuff was years. But I guess throughout his career, he was killing it, and he's a music a genius. Made over $100 million, but now because of the court cases and the lawsuits and all that stuff, he's in the negative 2 million. Well, at this point of the game, he's, well, what is he? 50 something, and he got 30 years, so he'll be 80 something. So whatever, like, but I guess meaning that he won't have that the legacy or inheritance that for his children that he built because of all of this mishap, which is unfortunate for his children. But again, another story. And remember, I'm only touching on the surface of this because, like on Monday nights when we have this show, usually we have a panel, so you could we could throw these ideas out during that time. But I'm not gonna have a show this Monday because I'm gonna honor and respect people spending time with their families. So we'll be back on the, was it the 11th? So we'll take a little break, but I'll still, throughout the week, I'll probably pop on a couple times. All right, that's that. Looking at the times, been on here 23 minutes, and I'm not going to stay on that much longer. One of the things was said is we can't solve the problem of violence against girls and women without addressing violence against men and boys. Like, excuse my language, how the fuck we supposed to, how the fuck we supposed to do that? We talk about violence against women and girls when boys have been violated at a higher level than girls, and they're the leaders of the home, but we don't have put too much emphasis on that, and we have all these broken men um again in our community. So that has to be looked at. Someone has to take the lead in that, and we have to look at that because I don't think it'll ever get better unless some of these men, boys and men, start getting healed. And here's another good point that was made. We won't succeed in teaching our sons to care for other people bodies until we kind of teach them to learn to care for theirs. We always talk, you always talk about, and I can't say again, there's no absolutes because some, people give the same message to their boys, but a lot of times it's to their girls to make sure nobody touches you, uh, make sure that you tell me and all that stuff because sometimes You just don't think of that happening to boys, but it does. It does. And a lot of times, it's girls. There's girls, older girls, or older women that's touching them and doing things. Which takes me to another testimony. I remember being on the school bus. It was this young lady. I don't know what grade I was in at that time. I'm probably going to say I was like in the third or something. And she was like maybe in the fifth. And she was freaking developed at her age. Had the breasts. She proceeded on one day. We would sit like in the back of the bus. So I probably was at third grade. I probably was in the middle. And there was a bunch of commotion going on. And she went on, and I guess it was a couple people wanted to for her to, take down her pants or skirt and show them her private part. She went on to do it, and she did it, and I got out of my seat. We're all looking, and at that stage, I seen a girl, I had a sister and little cousins, like the babies, but not to see someone that was older than me. Her private thing, and it was hairy, and so she had the boys back there going crazy. She even went to as far as opening it up and doing all this stuff. So it was wild. So this is the type of stuff that happens, but again, it's typically swept under the rug and you just carry on. Now, I didn't get off the bus and say, "Hey, mom," what we call my mother Grace, this would happen on the bus. Never even mention of it. We talked amongst each other, but it was never nothing brought up. I wonder if my brothers remember that. Maybe they probably was in the first couple seats of the bus there. So here's another fact. Many boys who reported being sexually victimized reported it was another child, and over half of the violators were girls. So you see what was happening. You had some boys that reported it, but it was girls that were doing it, little fast asses, which can take me to another testimony. I remember, I got stories to tell. I remember I think it was my birthday. And, I used to be matching head to toe. Back in those days, you would have on your little jam outfits and, the matching socks, sneakers. So it was my birthday. I was going um, over to my grandmother's house to probably collect my little birthday money, but I got stopped by a young lady. And she was like, "Hey, David," or she called me by my nickname. "Ain't it your birthday today?" I was like, "Yeah." And then she was like, "Well, what you doing?" And I was like, "I was about to go to my grandmother's house." She was like, "You don't want to spend your birthday with me?" And I kind of like, okay, she all right, whatever. I used to think that. So me and her went down to the tracks and stuff, and she was like very aggressive, and I was kind of like paranoid, like, oh, this, and mind you, I had never had sex. I was a virgin at that time, so I was kind of like, yo, like this, so we can't do it here. She's like, yo, relax, relax, and she was younger than me, though. She was younger. She's like, you're gonna be all right, and she was going full throttle, but I didn't feel comfortable where we were at, so it didn't take place. But of course, after that, she went back and said I was afraid of the PUSSY. So I had to deal with that. Had to deal with that. But you know, tables got turned later on. But that was that, and also another testimony. See, I try to keep personal connections so you can see. Hope I ain't boring you with the stories. There's only a couple people watching anyway, but I'm sure people will go back and click on it. I remember also that, remember I talk about the theme about these older women and younger boys. I remember it was this one lady, never knew her name, never knew her name, but she lived like at the corner we lived at. And I used to always ride my bike by that way, just hoping to get a shot of her. She had long hair, brown skin. Don't think she had any kids, but I think one day I seen her get out the car and she was with this old ass white man. And I was kind of like, oh, like, what's that about? Then I started connecting. I was like, I wonder if she like a prostitute or something. But at the time, prior to seeing her with that older white man, I was thinking at my age, now mind you, I was young. I hope my mother ain't watching this. It don't matter anyway. But I was thinking, as we say in modern terms, she can get it. She can get it. Now, mind you, this woman might have been like in her late 20s or 30s, and I was like 9, 10, or whatever the case is. And that was when I was like, yeah, I know my buddies used to be like, come over, you need to come with us to be with these women. I was like, nah, they like chopped liver compared to this woman. But nothing ever happened. Eventually, she ended up moving off the street. Never saw her again, but she used to just pop up here and there, and every like I would ride by that way purposely every day just to get a just to ride by my bike, maybe say hi, we make eye contact or whatever the case is. And a couple of times we did make eye contact, but what the hell was I going to do with that eye contact anyway? It was just that was like a crush. All right, so that was another one. Also, most boys never told an adult. So again, remember we got boys that they don't share that information. They don't talk about it. So it's like a untold thing. Here's some numbers. 1 out of 6 boys are abused during childhood. So if you think about it, 1 out of 6. 1 out of 6. And we're not talking about race or anything like that. But just say for sake of saying race. Imagine if 1 out of 6 black boys and women black women outnumber us by 2 million. So as you can see, there's a lot. 1 out of 6, that's 17, 18%. That creates a big deficit as far as mm, people with boys that grew up to men with possible pain. I highly doubt if they went and seeked out therapy or got anything done. And they just gradually just went on with life. They got into sports. They did different things. And that was another part of the article about boys getting sexually assaulted by playing sports and stuff. Like in one case, you had a football team where it was older boys, upper class men, and they had sexually assaulted some of the ninth graders by using a broom to stick it up in their rectum. I don't mean to gross y'all out, but this is the stuff that be happening, and it's real and it's painful, and they had to go through that. And the thought of that, and to wonder why somebody would want to do that, is troubling. But this is happening. Like I said, we're going to take this stuff much deeper. I'm just starting it off. Also, 1 out of 4 men is a victim of some kind. 1 out of 4 men is the victim of some kind of sexual violence over his lifetime. So that's 25%. So now you start looking at numbers, and that's why they say that, data is important. Here's some other things, and I'm about to get ready to wrap it up. More than 40% of gay men and 47% of bisexual men have been victimized, compared to 21% of straight men. Hold up. Hold up. Wait a minute. I don't know if it's a such thing as a bisexual man. That's always been an ongoing controversial thing. I don't know if you can go back and flip it on, flip it off. I think men are more willing to accept women that rub carpets together compared to that happening to men. I don't know if women are acceptive like that unless they're sexual deviants or just like to explore and they're wild and just like that type of lifestyle. I just don't know. Talk to me, people. Y'all quiet in the chat. I know it's only a few of y'all in here, and I'm gonna post it to my different sites and platforms. But that sexual and that bisexual man thing, I don't think you can turn it on and turn it off. So I don't even know if that's a category. But I'm not the one to determine that. But that's just been my thought overall. Like I don't know how that works. We'll find out though, because I'll post that separate as a question. I posted it in years before, and I'm gonna stir the pot again because that's why I call myself the controversial counselor. So again, these are some of the stats, and like I said, this was just like a quick snapshot to get this conversation going. And what drove it home or brought it to me is just thinking about R. Kelly's childhood and everybody, oh, he's a monster and all that. But there was monsters that created that monster, that older relative that was molesting him, and also Mr. Henry. So you have to sometimes you have to go back and think about it, and that might be the only time you may have compassion for people if you go back and think about when they were a child, because even murderers and stuff like that, there's a history behind it. But again, you know how we operate. Oh, I don't talk about the past, we don't do the past, that's in the past. Nah, gee, I better start thinking about looking at stuff like that, or listening to people when they talk and they tell you certain things. Sometimes people tell you stuff whatever about them, which will kind of give you kind of forecast of what can possibly happen in the future. But remember this, at the end of the day, and I'm going to kind of summarize it with this, that these young males that were assaulted by older women, but remember, most boys think that's lucky, like they hit the they hit the got the silver bullet, they hit the jackpot by getting lucky, and never reported in at a young age. And these same individuals at that time may be suffering like through post-traumatic syndrome disorder, depression, having suicidal thoughts, angry, using alcohol, substance abuse, become violent, become sexual deviants. So there's an aftermath of that. And I had made a post about that as well. Uh, so I just wanted to kind of come on, talk about that in wake of, like I said, it's the holiday weekend. A lot of things go on: cookouts, meetings, gatherings, people coming together who never met, and you start forming relationships. You better start thinking about some of these boys to men and some of the things that they went through. And for moms and dads, you better cover down on your boys and figure out what's going through their minds. I mean, a lot of times we know we contribute it to, oh, it's just hormones, it's just hormones, but it may be very well something could have happened. We don't know. We don't know. It could be at school. They could belong to a, a sports team or anything. Yeah, I got stories for days, but I'm gonna let this one. I'll hold on. I'll hold on to this one, and I'll keep it. And I'll probably bring that up at a different time. But I just wanted to get this going. Please, like I said, like and share the video. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, The Controversial Counselor. And like I said, look for more pop up conversations like this. And typically on Monday nights is at 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time is when we have the panel. So it may be, and if you're someone who wants to join the panel, feel free. I'll send you the link, and because sometimes we have people come on, then sometimes we'll have weeks we'll have my regulars, then we'll have during the summer we may have times that people got on vacation or doing different things or going to conferences. So it's always room and space on the panel for you to come and give your insight. And sometimes it's a nice change of pace to get other people's opinions. So feel free to do that. But with that said, I'm out. Everybody, again, continue to enjoy your holiday, 4th of July holiday weekend. Enjoy your family and friends. Uh, Stay safe, stay alert, just have a good time, and just continue to move forward and enjoy the summer and keep trying to build and keep trying to grow because we know we got a dilemma on our hands with the gas prices, the increase in prices of food and stuff like that, and just the whole job market or work. It's a lot. It's a lot of things to be down about, but I think if we continue to have good, productive conversations, that would kind of alleviate some of the pain. But I'm out again. Again, everybody enjoy yourself. See you next time. Peace.